All right, welcome to the NBS special edition. Today we got our big interview. We have Rhino from Impact Wrestling in the building. We got True X the Sports Guy along with Justin. We're here to interview the War Machine. How's it going, man?
Good, good. I thought we were live a few minutes ago. I wasted all my good material. I guess it's just tapered down from here.
There you go. There you go. Oh man, we're just
you guys can save this. Hopefully, you guys can save this interview.
Oh, we will. We will.
Okay, good, good. You guys are the professionals. I'm not.
Definitely.
But since we're actually on the Nothing But Sports show, do you watch sports, Rhino?
You know, a lot of guys and girls, they follow sports in the wrestling business. It's hard to. I started years ago when there wasn't no iPhones or, you know, internet and stuff like that. So you'd really have to dedicate yourself. And, you know, a lot of times when these games are on TV, you're at the live event, you know, working, or you're at TV working. So it was really hard to, you know, follow teams other than reading in the paper and this and that. But now it's a lot easier to follow teams. But I got accustomed to just focusing on wrestling and focusing on the town and focusing on working out and all that stuff. Now with technology, I'm not as hip or up to the game. So I don't follow it like I should. I don't follow it, you know, because Detroit is a sports town, you know,
Yeah.
and I don't follow it like I would like to. So, but I'm a big baseball fan. The Lions, it's tough being a Lions fan. But my DNA tells me I'm a Lions fan, so I will. I do enjoy U of M football because it's outdoors, and you know, when the fall, and I played football, and you know, we always played outdoors. So the fall, you know, when fall's in the air, you know, in the Midwest, and you know, you get that cold weather, it stinks to play in. But you know, as a fan, you know, sometimes it's really nice to watch. So the Lions, they've, you know, been playing indoors for several decades now, and it just doesn't have that same feel. But I enjoy going to Ford Field and watching a game, but I enjoy the Big House a lot more. So I've got to get to a Michigan State game.
Michigan State. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Michigan, man, there's a lot of great talent in wrestling that came from Michigan. I remember the Steiner brothers going to the ring with their Michigan jackets on.
Yeah.
And I thought that was always dope, man. So let me ask you this. Is there an underground circuit out there? Why is there so much talent that comes from Michigan?
Nothing else better to do. Too damn cold outside most of the year, so we go indoors and we wrestle. So, as kids, you just grow up wrestling your brothers or sisters, you know. I mean, not like pro style, but you're wrestling over that last, you know, helping of food. So that's how I got to. So, but anyway, yeah, it's one of those things where wrestling, like, you know, it falls back on sports. Sports is, you know, in Detroit, in the Michigan area, it's a big sports city and state. So I think a lot of people are, you know, and you got a lot of time in the wintertime, you know, and amateur wrestling is something. And then you're in the house a lot more, so you can watch wrestling and sports and stuff like that. So I think that's why a lot of, you know, and they get that dream. And so then they follow after that dream as they become adults. And you know, so yeah, there's a lot of great talent that's come out of Michigan, and there's a lot of great talent on the independent scenes here in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania and stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
All right. Well, I mean, you've had a 20-year plus career going on the road everywhere, wrestling all over the world and all over the United States. What's always brought you back to Michigan? Like, you've always stayed in Michigan, and you know.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not the Lions. No, I like Raz and the Lions. You know, like I said, I am a fan, and you know, it's home. You know, the state, I love the state. Like you said, I could live anywhere in the country and in the world for that sake. But it's just, you know, I'm a boater. I love the Great Lakes. You know, there's like, for example, people go, well, you can boat down there in Florida, and a lot of wrestlers go down to Florida. Yeah, that's true, but there's sharks in the water in Florida. Here in Lake Erie, we just have to worry about pollution that'll, you know, make you glow at night. But other than that, I mean, really don't have much to worry about. You know, that, you know, we don't have poisonous snakes and stuff like that. But you know, it's like sports. If you know, if you could watch football all year long, you know, it would take away from it. You know, and it's good to have a season, whether it's baseball, football. I know there's some people that talked about pro wrestling having a season. I think pro wrestling's different, you know, but maybe it would help business, maybe it wouldn't, who knows. I just like going and performing all year long. So, you know, so it's nice to have a boating season. And I think that's the main thing that keeps me in Michigan is the Great Lakes. And to be honest with you, the snow doesn't bother me. So, well, January, February, and March, yeah.
So if wrestling did go to a season, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said snow on the ground for Christmas is great, but after that, no.
Well, I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what you said. If wrestling did go to a season, I know a lot of fans would be hurt by it, but what months do you think would be best if they did go by seasons?
I think it would just have a different as far as stories and stuff like that. How much time do you have off? What do you do on the time off? Would there still be independent wrestling shows, which probably there would be. So I don't think, but also what really helps fuel the machine is with WWE and AEW and like WCW or Impact Wrestling is sponsorships. And sponsorships pay for all year long too. And that helps pay the talent and that helps pay the growth. And when you grow, you can do better things, like whether it's work in communities and stuff like that. So the bigger the companies become, the better it is all around, you know. So so that way, you know, but then again, it's like, are there movies only seasonal? You know, so yeah, wrestling is more, you know, entertainment and athleticism and combined. So it's you know, it's a little different than sports, but who knows? You know, definitely I like working all year long.
No, that's right.
I'd be bored if I had to sit at home.
So starting from the beginning, like at what age were you actually introduced to wrestling?
Oh geez, I was just thinking about that the other day. I want to say 86. It was right after WrestleMania 1, right before WrestleMania 2, in between there. And like a lot of other people I talked to, because I talked to a lot of fans, you know, once they seen it, they're like, oh my God, what is this? This is awesome, you know? And, you know, I was introduced, you know, when Andre the Giant was still a baby face, and I loved him. And then King Kong Bundy. I remember him splashing Hogan. It was a build-up for WrestleMania 2. And
yep.
Oh, man, I was very upset with that, you know. And I realized that wrestling, all we do is mess with people's emotions.
Lord, I cried, man. Some of those matches. I'm not gonna lie. When Hogan lost the Ultimate Warrior, I cried. I was an Ultimate Warrior fan, but I liked Hogan more.
Right. Well, no, leading into, I'll never forget when Hogan turned, or when Andre turned heel on Hogan, the Piper's Pit, man, I was hooked. And, you know, we didn't have money growing up, but we got in trouble, and my parents were going to buy tickets to WrestleMania. And then they're like, okay, they suffered enough, you know? And I remember my mom calling for tickets, and I think there were some available, but there weren't 4 together. And we're all small. We couldn't have split each other up, you know? So I remember we called, I think it was Ticketmaster, and they were looking and yeah. So but the thought of them trying to get one was cool enough. And WrestleMania 3, over 93,000 people. I'll never forget that day. I was in a party store, ran to the party store, and a guy, he goes, "Aren't you going to watch WrestleMania?" And I'm like, "Nah." And he goes, and I think he asked about the main event. And I said, "I'd like Hulk Hogan to win, but I think Andre is going to win." Because if you remember, they made a title that would fit Andre. At that age, I was kind of like, you hear people, oh, it's a work and this and that. And you're like, nah. And then you're like, maybe, but I still believe. And then when they brought out the title, I'm like, they would not have spent all that money on a title if they're not going to switch it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Definitely, that was a nail in the coffin for Hogan, right? So, and then on the news when I heard he won, because it was on the local news, and I just like jumped up, and yeah, I think they were promoting that they were going to tell the results or something, or because usually I was in bed by then. But like now I'm in bed by 8, 9 o'clock. But it's coming full circle, baby. But yeah, so I was just like, I heard that he won, and they had a little clip from it, and it blew my mind. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever, So yeah, and I didn't think he was gonna pull it off, and I actually just watched the match not too long ago. So I actually had a girl over here. I was showing, she never watched wrestling, and I showed her some matches, and she's like, "Why was I exposed to this as a kid?" I just told her, "Your parents sucked." He's like I'm showing her all the good stuff, right? Because she has kids, and her kids watch this stuff, so it's like her kids will come down to the marina and hang out and stuff. But yeah, you gotta watch some of the good stuff, like Piper and Orton and all those guys. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not judging anybody's parental, capabilities, but if you don't expose your kids to at least 80s wrestling, nowadays wrestling's pretty clean, but yeah.
Definitely. So after you watched Andre, well, you didn't watch it, you went to bed. When did you go to your mom and your dad, your teacher, and say, "Look, I want to be a wrestler. That's what I want to do for a career"?
Oh, I just dreamt about it, and that's what it's important for people to know. I hate people that try to tell kids don't daydream, don't dream. If you kill a person's dream, you kind of kill them inside too. There's nothing wrong with being a dreamer. Always focus. Work hard, and like I tell kids, I'll never forget. I went to a school. It was out in Lansing area. I forget how I got rookered into it, but someone I knew, they were like, "Hey, can you do a career day?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And I don't mind doing that stuff. It's very rewarding. So here I am as a professional wrestler, and this was like 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Talk about how you got into it and this and that. You basically a career day, and it was middle school. So right before we go to the classes we're assigned to, and they move you around and stuff, and there's people like from firefighters to lawyers to you name it, and then the principal's like, "Oh, this is the age where you gotta try to convince to these kids that they're not going to be that rapper, or the pro football player, or the basketball player, or you kind of gotta steer them in the right direction as far as a career." And I look at the person next to me, I go, "Well, what the hell am I doing here for?" Like, I'm a little coach, right? Yeah. And I'm like, way to kill their dreams, principal. Like, and I understood what he was saying, but the thing is I try to explain to kids, like I would never be a basketball player. My vertical is maybe 6 inches, 8 at my best day, right? So, actually, it's a little higher than that, though. You guys are like, "Man, I feel bad for Rhino." But anyways, I know I can't be a basketball player, but if I have that love and that passion, and I would play the game, and maybe I couldn't be on the court, but some of the best coaches out there
That's
weren't
right.
that great of athletes, weren't that great of a player of the game. You can be you can get into marketing. There's so many things that make like a basketball team go, a football team, a wrestling promotion. Um, so there's and acting. You might not be a great actor, but there's nothing wrong with being the best director. You might so like for example, you might want to own a business, something along those lines, so it's just you can never and that's one thing I disliked about counselors in high school. They're kind of like guiding you where they think you'll, and I know they're doing a job and stuff like that, but they never once, like, I don't remember a counselor going, what do you want to do? Because I would have told them I would have wanted to be a pro. And then sometimes, when I did start telling people after I was out of high school, because that's what I went into about a year after high school, found a school, this and that. And, I was laughed at, believe it or not. My best friend at the time, he's still a good friend, he turned around and he laughed at me. And I go, why are you laughing at me, bro? And we would train in the gym together. He goes, you're not big enough. And I hit a growth spurt, and I'm like, and I was only like 214 at the time. And, I'm like, back then it was the land of the giants. So it was actually just coming off the land of the giants. So, but it's one of those things where you can't just get discouraged and you got to move forward.
Right.
So, and if you believe in it and if you work hard, you can achieve goals, so. But never let people kill your dreams, and it's always good to keep dreaming, that next step and going after it,
Absolutely.
So what would you say to that parent that doesn't think that their children should watch wrestling or want to be a wrestler, but yet they would put them in karate or MMA? To the parents who think that wrestling is too violent or like promotes bullying, what would you say to that parent?
I always tell, I mean, there's no book on being a parent, and even if there was, a book on the proper, I'm sure there's books out there. I know there was pregnancy books out there when my ex-wife was pregnant, what to expect when expecting. So I'm sure there's parental books out there, but there's no right way or wrong way. I mean, as far as a parent, you can, so I think as a parent, I always like to say, let kids be kids and try to figure it out, let them know you'll be there for them. I was very blessed to have good parents. A lot of times it's hard for a kid to communicate with the parents because you might think you're weird. When I was growing up, I'll go a little deep on you guys. I'm a bit OCD, right? But as a kid, my dad would, like, I thought that was abnormal, right? Like I would make my bed, like no wrinkles or whatever, but it wasn't one of those things where it hindered my life, it did a little bit, but my parents thought that I could only imagine the conversations they had. They were like, well, he's going into the Marine Corps or he's gay, one of the two. Nobody makes a bet that neat unless you're either one or the other, right? So, but anyways, no, but I would keep things nice and neat and clean. And my dad was kind of like that too. So I don't know if he was ever like that. But growing up, I think, if I would have told my dad, he would have been like, it's not a big deal. And I put pressure on myself,
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'd like to convey to kids. If you think there's something, abnormal, chances are your parents have probably seen or heard everything at that point in their life. So if you just have an open communication with them, you realize that you're worrying about nothing, so, and there's tools out there to help people, and kids that, may have, a different trait or a different skill, such as that. So, but anyways.
Definitely, man. Well, let's go back. Let's go back in your lifetime, right? And in NBA, NFL, you have draft night. When is that moment that you received the call or the news that you basically was gonna be a professional wrestler, and how did you feel?
Well, I went to I called a wrestling school, and it just kind of everything just kind of continued to wheel, and the wheels kept on moving, when they were in motion, and so like I found a school, I found the number, I went, and kind of things started rolling. But you know, in your mind, you think of this glorious, you know, like you're going to get a call and you're going to send email and then you're going to go here, you're going to go there. I was in my trailer and I was getting ready to go to bed. Well, that morning I was actually going to the bank and then, you know, just doing typical banking stuff. And then I got a call from Bruce Pritchard at the time. And he said, hey, listen, you know, this was the end of January of 2001. He goes, we'll send you out that 3-year deal and, you know, look it over, blah, blah, blah. You know, your downside and then you can make whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool, you know. And then later that night, I got a call from Brad Riggins. I was literally going to bed in my trailer. And the window next to my bed, we'd have to put like this, you know, the plastic you put over the windows and tape. If you're a Midwestern person, it helps keep the heat in your electric bill. And that would always fall down. Or just in the middle of the night, just taping it up. And it was brutal. Anyways, for the most part, it was a nice trailer. But then Brad Riggins called me the same day. And he goes, we want to bring you over for a tour in March. And I go, I'd love to, but I already, you know, talked to them earlier. And he said, hey, man, go there, make as much money as you can. You know, I'm happy for you. And I said, you know, if he would have called me first, I would have agreed to it. And then, you know, and I would have probably, you know, still worked with WWE. You know, they would have been like, okay, go over there. You committed to it. And then when you get back, we'll start you over here. But yeah, it was weird, but there was no big, you know, like, oh, this is great. Nothing like that. It's like, hey, you want a job? Yeah.
So how did you get your Rhino name?
Well, there's a lot of speculation out there, but I want to say it was Reckless Youth that told D'Lo, you know, and then D'Lo came over and told me. It was you know, and this is what I tell a lot of up and coming wrestlers, you know, go to these shows, these small independent shows, because you don't know what you're going to learn, you know, what to do and what not to do. And there was a show and D'Lo came up to me and the lights were out, but the show must go on. And they got a little generator with some tree lights and they ran the show. It was about 40, 50 people there. And it was at the GI Forum in Detroit here and just a little building. And they said, hey, you ever thought about using that name? And I go, no. And I go, but yeah, thanks. And then the show after that, I used Terry Rhino Richards. And then the show after that, that was at Al Snow's school in Lima, Ohio. He would run little shows out there. And so that was the first time I ever used the name Rhino. And then I used Rhino Richards for a couple of years until I started with ECW. And then I just dropped Richards. And then when I went to WWE, they were trying to figure out a different name because they were having a tough time trademarking Rhino, but they ended up getting it through with a Y. So, and there's another thing, you know, they're like, we got to find out another name, right? I'm like, my buddy Joe Legend said, why don't they change the I to a Y like they did with China? So I pitched that to him. So then 5 weeks later, I was just doing, you know, shows on the indies, or not indies, but like dark match and on the live events, you know, for WWE. And then we were using Rhino until they came up with a name they could trademark. And all of a sudden we were at TVs. They go, you're starting tonight. I go, really? I go, did they figure out a name? They go, yeah, Rhino with a Y. It was Hayes. He goes, yeah, Vince got it cleared. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like, hey, you're starting Rhino with a Y. Okay. You know.
And now you switched it back to the I?
Yeah, see, I have the rights to RHINO. Yeah.
Oh.
So I think what it is they like to trademark a certain name, but the reason why I can use the I is because I never signed it over to them. You know, and in the second contract in 2003, they put it in there, and I said, now unless I signed it over to them because I used it prior, kind of like Macho Man, Randy Savage, he had that, you know, unless you sign it over to him. And I said, hey, I don't mind signing the Y over because you guys, you know, went through the hassles of trademarking it, but I'm not signing the Y over, you know. So I think like Little Guido signed Little Guido over when he signed. I'm not too sure, but I think he told me signed it over. So, and a lot of times if you don't, if you don't mention anything, or if you mention something, they'll just, just give it back to you. So.
Oh, okay. So they work with you. That's dope.
Yeah, I can't say anything bad about WWE. They've always been good. All the places I've really worked, So, Impact before they were pretty cool. So I haven't had a really bad experience. So I've been very fortunate.
So. Okay. You want me to ask another question?
What are some of the sports you guys watch? And who are you?
I watch everything.
Really?
That's why they call me the sports junkie. I watch everything. Soccer jerseys behind me.
Nice.
I'll be honest with you, and I never come on here and try to sugarcoat anything. I was a huge wrestling fan in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, and I kind of just went away from wrestling altogether.
Yeah. No, which is understandable. Usually you get out of wrestling. I got out of wrestling probably in my high school years. And I think a lot of people get out of it in their high school years. Cause I think they discover different things, like maybe hanging out with the guys and, and all that. And the cool thing now is I think, the reason why you've seen a lot of big boom in wrestling with women, I think because a lot of the guys in the 80s that watched it, they would take their daughters and show their daughters, and and then it's one of those things. Now they're older, they're getting into it, and and a lot of them, it's just like they're so talented. I'd hate to get in the ring with them because they probably really mess me up. Not only are they talented, they're tough.
Where did you get your finisher move, gore? And who, in your opinion, was your favorite gore? Like, who did you gore that was your favorite ever?
Jericho through the SmackDown that was always a good one. That's made me a couple bucks on the replays. Actually, Tracy Smothers was the first one to tell me to Gordo, right? And it was my first match in ECW. And Edge started doing it, and he'd get a couple Goldberg chants, and this was 1999. And I had done it in 96, and I take no credit for discovering the move. Bill Goldberg got it over. There's no doubt about that. But anyways, I did it to Anthony Rutgazer in a show in Lincoln Park, Michigan. And the guy dropped down, and I hit him with it, and he was my tag partner. And the way he bumped, he fell out of the ring, which I felt bad for the guy. But he jumped over the guy, and then I hit him with a spear. And then A.T. Huck was the one that told me to do this, right? And then he tripped over the guy, and he fell out of the ring. It looked cool as shit, but
wow.
For Anthony, thank God he didn't get seriously hurt, right? So then I literally thought to myself, I'll never do that move again, right? Which is crazy, right? So fast forward 3 years later, it was my first in-ring experience with it was a match. My bad. And then I forget who I was working with, but Tracy Smothers, it was the FBI came running in, Nova and came running down to save me, but Tracy goes, just come across and spear me. I go, well, I don't want to do it because some people are chanting Goldberg with Edge when he hits it. He goes, and Tracy Smothers is a tough SOB. He goes, I didn't ask you. I asked you if you could do it. I didn't ask you if you were worried about people chanting Goldberg and the boys thinking you're a move stealer. He goes, can you do it? I go, yeah. He goes, okay, then do it. If anybody says anything to you, send them to me. And I'm like, okay. So I hit him with it, and then it went really well. And so I ended up using it as like a cutoff. So fast forward a couple of years later, because in ECW I'd do a pile driver as a finish. Fast forward a couple of years later in WWE, you couldn't do a pile driver because after Austin broke his neck. So then I was thinking about doing a TKO, like Mark Merrill and all that stuff. So I was working with Steve Lombardi on the live events, and I'd hit him with a spear off the ropes, and then, but by then Paul was calling it a gore in ECW. So then I'd pick him up, and then I'd do a TKO, and he goes, "Just pin me after the gore, because it gets the bigger pop." And I go, "Okay." And I literally thought to myself, I'm like, "Oh, what a veteran being lazy."
Oh man.
So, but he was right, because it would get a bigger pop, right? So I just kept on doing that, and then I started setting up in the corner, right? So, and I think that's the cool thing about it, right? So, anyways, so Steve Lombardi was the one to give it to me for a finish, so I give him credit for that. And he always brings it up to me now, because I shouldn't have pointed out, like, "I gave you your finish." I'm like, "You told me to use a move that I was already using for my finish."
Oh.
Brother, good thing I'm not asking you for royalties. Like,
Well,
Steve,
shout out
come
to
on.
Steve. Shout out to Steve. Okay, since we talk about matches and stuff, tell me the best match you've personally been a part of and the best match you ever watched.
Oh, geez. You know, your first WrestleMania, you know, you never forget your first, and being part of the TLC too, you know, and being in there with, you know, from the Dudleys to the Hardys to Edge and Christian, helping with the finish. And I'll tell you a story about that. So here you are, 72,000 people. You know, the night I was never a guy, you know, stay up late. You know, I'm falling asleep early. Like, I'll drive through the night and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if I can get flat early, I will. You know, so like tonight, I'll probably be in bed by 8, 9 o'clock.
Wow.
The pandemic, I was in bed sometimes at 6 o'clock. So, but anyways, and I'm one of those guys that watch TV too. So I'll just, you know, I'll just go to bed and watch TV and fall asleep. Then wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch TV for 3 hours, fall asleep for another 2. But no, but I like getting up early. I was always like that as a kid and stuff. So we had to go to the arena back then. They, you know, set up the ring, and if you wanted to go and, you know, look at the place or walk through the place, I don't want to really say rehearsals, because it really wasn't that. You know, kick around ideas, try not to, you know, hurt each other, you know, get the lay of the land type deal. So I was actually, the Dudley boys were there, and, you know, I was raised, you know, shut up until you're spoken to, right? Like Sabu would tell me that, you know, just listen to everything and just, you know, be aware. So I was just sitting in like JR's seat, right? You know, they had other announce tables and stuff, and that's comfortable. And it's probably like 11:30 at night. I'm already 2.5 hours past my bedtime. So I started falling asleep. And Bubba, I'd known Bubba since ECW, and I worked with him a little bit before he left for WWE. And all of a sudden, I hear Edge go, "Rhino," and I wake up, and he goes, "Would you like to stay awake? You know, there's a little thing called WrestleMania tomorrow." And I'm like, "My bad," right? So, and I see Bubba just looking at me, glaring at me, right? And looked like he wanted to chew a hole in my neck, right? So, but anyways, I mean, I was fighting it for a good half hour, dozing off, and, you know, so they're setting up some ladders and stuff like that, you know, just like I said, try to get the lay of the land and all that. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if you remember that spear that Edge did on Jeff Hardy. And Jeff's on the ladder, and, you know, and they said something, and I go, and like, I'm like, why don't you just pull the ladder, right? Like, that's what I'm thinking. So I'm kind of like that kid in class wanting to raise my hand, because I was just yelled at about a half hour ago. And they were spending like 15 minutes on it. And I'm like, the answer's right there. Bubba, you got to pull the ladder, then I'll swing forward, right? So finally, I just said, you know what? I'm done with this. This is really cutting into my bedtime. So, hey, why don't you do this? So they're like, oh, that works out great. So that's how I contributed to that match.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. But it was, I mean, it was a fun, so as far as probably the greatest match, I mean, there's other matches where you win a title, and stuff like that. I was just talking to Slater. I'm trying to get him in with Impact. And I was talking about how we did the thing with the tag titles and in WWE, and I go, we're trying to do something similar but different here, and I like the way it's planning out, and and it was very organic in WWE, and we weren't planning to win, maybe a couple matches together and then just go our separate ways, but it just worked. People loved it. So I go, yeah, that was a fun angle, that was we were together for 3 years. He goes, and this is what got me. Slater goes, he goes, the best part about that angle, I gained a friend out of it. Yeah, and I'm like, well, that's nice. I almost felt bad when I said, well, at least you gained a friend out of it. I didn't.
Wow.
You're a real asshole, Slater. No, I didn't say that, but because I didn't think of it at the time. If I would have said it. Like, who's your friend? Sure ain't me.
Wow.
No, he's a heck of a dude. I'll tell you one quick road story with Slater. So, like, I love driving, right? So he'd want to drive. Sometimes I'd be falling asleep at night, and he's like, "Let me drive." I'm like, "Okay." So, but most of the time I drive, right? So, we land, we get the car, we're going to the building, right? And he stops at a store. Usually grab water, this or that. So I think it was a little convenience store. It wasn't a gas station. So I figure I just pull up. I go, here, jump out. We're running short on time. So I backed we always got minivans, enough room in case someone needed a ride, they could jump in. We're not pressed for room or anything, bags, all that stuff. So anyways, so I back in, and there's a light right there, and I could see traffic coming from both sides, right? So I knew we weren't in any danger. So the second he jumped in and closed the door, I had it in drive, I hit the gas pedal, and I could see there's no traffic. We literally jumped into the street, and he's sliding around. He thought my foot got caught in the pedal, and we're aiming for a tree, and then I cut the wheel, and he slides one way, and then he slides the other way, and he's trying to grab on, and you should have seen his face. He's like, because he sees us heading right for a tree, and then I cut the wheel, and there was a red light, so I slammed on the brake, and he falls forward. He's like, what happened? And I just started laughing. He's like, did you do that on purpose? And I just laugh even harder. And he's like, I thought your foot got caught in the pedal. I thought we were going to die. I hit the tree. Yeah. So, but no, traveling with him, man, was a lot of fun. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, he's a good cat.
So speaking of practice, you're talking about, your practicing for WrestleMania. Has, one of the biggest stories in wrestling history was the Montreal screw job. Have you ever seen personally a situation where you were involved where someone went off a script and didn't follow what the script said?
Not really. I mean, a lot of times you just go out there and, you kind of, A, B, and C, and then fill in the blanks and stuff like that. But there, it's funny because I work a lot of independent shows, and that was one of the reasons why I didn't re-sign with WWE. They offered me more than double. And the thing with WWE, they have a lot of people under contract. They have, I know when I was there, over 215 people under contract. So that's a lot of people under contract. That's NXT, Raw, and SmackDown. And you have to rotate the talent, which is only fair. And I love being on the road. So, so I figured I would go work with Impact, which I was blessed to have the opportunity to do that. And then I can do independent shows. One, because you see a lot of younger talent. You can help discover younger talent, help them. And I like the gimmick table, interacting with the fans. So I do a lot of independent shows. And I forget your initial question.
Has anyone ever gone off a script and
Oh yeah, that's my bad. I get on these, talking tangents. but sometimes I forget the question. But no, so I was doing. It's funny. Not a lot of people go off, but we kind of just. So talking about the Montreal screw job, I work with the Scarboni brothers in Michigan. They're an Italian group, and Josh. It was funny because we worked in a tent in February, like one of the coldest winters. This is like 4 years ago, right? And if I didn't love wrestling, I would have quit the indies right then and there. So it was in a tent, and they had some. It was like the winter brawl or whatever. So he rolled me up or something. So to this day, him and I call it the Algonac screw job because it was in Algonac, Michigan. So, but I just figured I had to share that with you guys. But no, nothing like that. And speaking of the Montreal screw job, I think I understand both parts. I understand Brett's part, and I understand Vince's part. As a business owner, you have to, especially when you're trailing in the ratings, you have to really, worry about your business and the future of your business. You owe it to your fans. So.
Definitely.
But no, I haven't had any big, screw jobs. I did have this guy that shouldn't have been in the ring, and I never take liberties on anybody, but I had to settle them down. So, but anyways.
Wow. Okay. Speaking of scripts,
like I warned him 3 times, and then I literally felt so bad. I go, you should have no right being in the ring, and I don't dog shit anybody, but this guy was so dangerous. And what? I like afterwards, I told him and I explained to him, that it's not about, one, it's about protecting, the people you're working with. Accidents do happen. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Really gotten hurt from, being paralyzed to even deaths in the ring. And it's very unfortunate. And those are from people that are very well trained. And I tell kids, don't wrestle in your backyards. Don't wrestle at home. Don't wrestle with your brothers or sisters, because you can get hurt. But, I told him, I go, you're not going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt others. And you become dangerous out there. And, and you don't want that. And I told the promoter, I'm like, it's a liability. You gotta,
right.
I mean, if a guy sells 70 tickets for you, and you put him in the ring, and then he hurts someone, or he hurts himself, and then you get sued, it's going to cost you a lot more than 70 tickets, And plus, fans can see through that, which it's gonna be harder for you to sell tickets because you're giving a shit product,
Yeah.
And you can't, no matter what business you're in, if you give a bad product, you're not gonna make money and stay in business for a long time. So.
That's right. Definitely. As far as scripts is concerned, I definitely want to ask you this. What would you say to those that say that wrestling's not a real sport?
I can understand why they say that, and because you have entertainment and, according to the Wrestling Commission in certain states, it's a real sport. So I'd say to those people, go ask the Wrestling Commission, because they definitely take a chunk out of the pay, so, and that all trickles down to less pay for us. So, the Wrestling and Boxing Commission, they in certain states, they'll definitely tell you it's real, and that's why the commission is important. So, I understand why they say it. It is what it is. As a wrestler, you're competing on different levels, and in sports you compete for that victory, and how do you gain victories? Scoring more runs, having more points on the board, whether it's touchdowns or extra points or whatever. So with wrestling, you're competing in a lot in different ways. You're competing to be a better athlete. You're competing to be a better entertainer, like a John Cena. You're competing to be a better businessman behind the scenes, because if you're a real asshole, nobody's going to want to deal with you,
Sure.
And even it's unfortunate with athletes. Sometimes you know, if you're, you know, it's good to be loud because you draw attention. But then if you're too loud, then it's like you turn people away. Or, you know, it's unfortunate because I see a lot of people with a lot of talents, and this is going in the business world too. You know, if you're just not fun to work with, eventually you're going to burn all the bridges, you know, and especially in today's society with everything being filmed and stuff like that and put out there, you really have to watch how you conduct yourself, you know. So it could be the end of your career, you know, and in baseball and football and basketball and other sports, you know, there's a lot of different avenues. You know, in wrestling, there's really one or two promotions where you can, or three promotions where you can make a living, you know, and so there's not a lot of places you can go. Hollywood, there's different film studios and stuff. So, you know, and if you act like a diva, you know, people are gonna not want to deal with you, you know. So, and it's very unfortunate because I've seen a lot of people that could have extended their careers in wrestling, but they weren't professional behind the scenes. So you can compete in a lot of different ways. So and like getting put over and matches and stuff like that and titles, it's a reward, you know, of your hard work and dedication. So
Okay. Well, kind of going back to the whole you know, switching companies like you talked about with Bret Hart. When you burn the championship belt live on TNA, was that a personal message to Vince McMahon, or was that just creative marketing?
no, that was just and see, here's the thing. Vince knows that Vince knows that it was nothing personal. It's just, you know, you're out there doing business, and it was part of an angle, you know, because everybody loves that guy that says, you know, F you to the man, you know, I'm better than that. And especially then, you know, that's why I would never try to say, you know, like, hey, you're the worst company, you know, no matter who it is, you know, like,
Right.
I don't believe that's good for business, you know, like, oh, this company is bad because now I'm working for that company or that company. It's like, yeah, I could have done better. You kept me in chains, you know, my hands were tied type deal. I couldn't be the champion that the fans and I know I can be. You know, that's a little different, you know. And a lot of wrestling fans think that a lot of talent is being held back, you know, and that happens in a lot of sports and a lot of businesses. Sometimes people aren't able to reach their full potential. And one thing Vince is good about is if you think you can climb higher, and if WWE is not the place to be, you know, go. You know, we'll definitely give you a second opportunity. You know, because and it's true. Sometimes you're not just hitting your stride there, you know, or you're not hitting your stride with Ring of Honor or Impact or AEW, and you go there and you hit a bigger stride, or vice versa. You go from WWE to an Impact, and you know, and gain and hit your stride. You know, because the thing is if there's the next Rock out there, you know, not only does the wrestling fans want to, you know, meet them, you know, the promoters want to meet them too because they want to make money on them, you know. So, but no, getting back to that, there was no, you know, in movies how they say there was no animals harmed in the filming of this movie. There was no title harmed in the filming of that.
That's what I'm going to ask you, because rumor has it, the legend has it, that you burned a replica and that you actually kept the original and didn't want to give it back. Is there any truth to that?
No, no belt was burned. Go back and watch that. And that wasn't that was the X Division title that was in that bag.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you remember, it was in the sack. Yeah, I had the ECW heavyweight title, which Conrad has. He collects, he does the show. Yeah, Conrad has the ECW title. So
okay.
yeah. And it was, you know, and he can display it and all that, but he can't put it on any TV or episode or anything. I'll be honest with you, it sat in my cellar for ever since, you know, for over 10 years. I never displayed it or anything, and I kept, you know, good care of it, you know. But anyways, yeah. So whenever I want it back, you know, we just talk about it, and that's that. So.
Well,
Yeah,
that's cool.
like I never display anything, you know, and something like that should be displayed. So I never really, I collect bobbleheads, but other than that, and I display them. So,
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
let's see one. Let's see one. Okay, okay. All right. Do we have a Rhino bobblehead?
No, I wish that would. Now, seriously, that would be a good accomplishment for me.
Well, we're gonna try to work on that. We're gonna try to work on that.
You know who this is? All right, Dimitri Young.
Dimitri Young. Yep.
Yeah, and he signed it for me too. I actually have a game-worn Tigers jersey from Dimitri. He's a buddy of mine. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I do have. He was never a president, but he was a statesman. Ben Franklin.
Ben Franklin.
Oh, detachable hat. Uh-oh.
I'm a bit of a history guy. So I live in Monroe, Michigan, so I had to get James Monroe.
You really are. You really keep you collect these things for real.
Yeah. And I'm a huge Nikola Tesla fan. Yeah, the Tesla coil.
Wow.
That's amazing. You have a championship belt in the cellar, and you have a business bobblehead on display.
Oh, they're right by the window. Yeah, looking over while they're looking at me as I look at over the marina. Yeah.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this, because we talked about it being a sport. So here's my thing. We know Brock Lesnar and CM Punk tried to make that transition to the UFC and MMA. Have you ever thought about making that transition at any point in your career?
UFC ready for this. No, you know, I wrestled back in high school and stuff, and it's funny because, you know, I'll get into conversations, and I know before I told you I don't like talking publicly religion or politics. I'm a religious person, and I think I was blessed with a gift, and that gift is to go out there and do a certain thing, which I'm able to help other people out. You know, UFC. I wrestled in high school, and I did good. I never went to college. You know, people will say, "Oh, what college did you go to?" And it's like, well, I looked at U of M, and they didn't offer pro wrestling classes, so.
Okay.
So that's something I wanted to do, you know, and you know, like school is for some, and school isn't for others. You know, I really enjoyed wrestling. You know, they call it amateur style when you wrestle pro. You know, and I wrestled a little bit after high school in tournaments and stuff, and I did really, really well. But it was affecting my professional, you know, and, you know, I'm a guy that's for the whole medical marijuana and all that stuff. But as a kid, well, it was the 90s, you know, I shouldn't say a kid, as a young adult. You know, I partaked in a little bit, like it seemed like everybody else. But I realized that was slowing me up from reaching my full potential and my full gift. So I quit that. And I hadn't touched it since, although I believe there's a lot of good medical reasons for it, you know, yeah. So I'm not against it. It just wasn't for me. I haven't drank in over 10 years because it's not.
Congratulations.
Thank you. There was a period in my life where I drank a lot for 3 years. So it's funny. I always joke around. I say, the doctors say 1 beer a day is good for you. So I figured I could just condense it all into 3 years. So I'm good till about 156.
Wow. Oh, man.
So yeah, so there you have it. I figured, okay, we'll get it all done at once. I don't think that's what the doctors had in mind, but a beer a day, you know. But anyways, you know, so there's a lot of sacrifices we all make, whether we're a parent, you know, for our jobs, a business, a career, you know. So yeah, so I just I am who I am, and
So, what is the worst injury that you have ever sustained and had to wrestle through?
Couple times I had neck surgery. I had a cervical fusion. I don't know if you can see the scar there. They took bone from my hip and put it in place of my C6, C7 disc. Everything's good, knock on wood. That was in 2001, November 2nd. And I was off for about 15 months. But a couple times when I was in there, I dinged up my neck and I would get a stinger, and it's just like your whole, your chest and arms, just on fire like pins and needles, like they're on sleep, but a lot worse. And then eventually it'd come back. But and then there was weakening in my left side, because of the nerve being pinched. So it was just the last month and a half, before I had to go have surgery, and I was with WWE, so they took care of everything. And Vince came over to me, and when we found out I needed surgery, it was at a show earlier that day. I went and had an MRI and X-ray, and he said, "Hey, I recommend Austin's doctor, Dr. Youngblood down in San Antonio, Texas." He goes, "But if you want to go to someplace in Detroit where you're more comfortable, we'll take care of all of it. Don't worry about your spot. After a year will go by quick, and then we'll get you back on the road working and this and that." So it was really cool, because when you find out you have to have something like that done, it's going to take a long time, before you get back, and that was almost 20 years ago. So
Wow.
But yeah, other than that, the last match, it was really tough. I was working with Kurt, and it was hard to push myself up off the mat, and you knew something was wrong, so. But I think it was on a Raw. I lost the U.S. title to him. So, but if you go back and watch that match, there's one time I'm getting in the ring and I'm trying to push up, and the pain was so bad, like for about a month and a half, and it just kept on getting worse and worse. I can only drive like with my arm behind me and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, that was terrible. Yeah. Oh, it was so painful. And I never took any painkillers, until after the neck surgery.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, that was, I understand why people like those, but I haven't touched the pain medicine since '03. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Okay, so one thing that we do all the time when we have a special guest on here, we do an exclusive interview, we like to ask some Mount Rushmore. So you're a wrestler. We're all fans. We have our opinions, but Mount Rushmore of wrestling. You tell us the 4 people that need to be up there.
Me.
I know it's
myself,
hard.
And I.
Yes.
And this handsome devil in Monroe, Michigan, named Terrence Guerin. Him too. We're great people. Hey, speaking of me, myself, and I, you guys ever watch Me, Myself, and Irene with Jim Carrey?
With Jim Carrey.
My buddy just watched it the other day, and we were on the road. We went to open up a wrestling school, and we'll help someone and like promote it and stuff, and did some signings. And we were talking about that movie on the way out there. And yeah, I've got to watch that because it's funny as hell. My Mount Rushmore, I'm probably going to go back to my childhood. It would definitely have to be Honky Tonk Man 1 because I love Elvis. So it would probably be Hulk Hogan, Honky Tonk Man, Ultimate Warrior, and Andre the Giant. Yeah,
that's a good 4. That's a really good 4.
Well, Macho Man too. There's room for more. But
if you could only say one's the greatest of all time, who would you say?
What's that?
If you could only name one as the greatest of all time, who would you say?
I think Piper, just because he would be on the Mount Rushmore. One, I got to know him, and he was a really, really, really good dude. And they say some of the nicest people are the biggest heels, but like I'll go back and one time we sat down for breakfast and we were up in Newfoundland, and it was cool because we were on like the same loop. We went down to Aruba. Kevin Nash had some shows down in Aruba that were great. It was like a vacation. And
Okay.
my buddy in Toledo, he was down there. He's real good friends with Nash, and he's a good worker and stuff. And he was a huge Rowdy Piper mark when he was a kid. And Piper and his son were down there, and they were in the water, right? So we go swimming, or we were in the water, and then they came swimming. We were on the beach, and we're just we're just talking for about a good maybe half hour, you know, and it was so nice, relaxed. Like I said, it was like a mini vacation. And I know my buddy is a huge Piper mark, and he had talked to him. He got to know him that weekend, right? And as Piper and his son's walking out, they were going to the gym in a little bit. And I look over at my buddy and I go, if you were told as a little kid you'd be down in Aruba swimming with Piper, what would you have said? He goes, first, I wouldn't believe it. I'd call you a liar, and then I might even punch you in the face.
Wow.
and this was in 2012, right? So, and you know, it's moments like that, you know, you kind of pinch yourself because, you know, growing up, and then it was, and then right from there we went to Newfoundland to join a tour on Progress. They're in Progress, and the last night Piper whipped me with his belt, right? Because I was a heel, and he came in the ring and made a save, and like as he's whipping me with the belt, I'm thinking to myself, this is awesome. And it was that loop where I just, you know, ran into him at the hotel, him and his son, and because his son would do the MMA and was thinking about making the transition. So he goes, don't worry, I'll get it. I'm like, you sure? And he goes, yeah. He goes, no, it's on me. And I thought to myself, Piper's picking up my breakfast. You know, like, does life get any better than this, right? So, and then what was really cool is when I was with NXT in 2015, they had me go out to WrestleMania for the match. You know, the NXT. I worked with Baron Corbin the night before, and they had us all in suites, right? And they had me in the suite because they didn't have a big room, and this was out in California, and they had me in a suite with Piper, some of his family members. His son wasn't there, and this was after the Aruba thing, and a few years after. But you know, by then we knew each other, you know, and we worked with each other in 2003 in WWE, so I got to know him a little bit there. But anyways, yeah. So I'm thinking to myself because I'm watching WrestleMania, and like here, Piper was in the very first WrestleMania, and he had to get changed up there because they had him do a thing with I forget who it was, but they did a thing where like Flair standing there and Piper and a couple other people. So I think they did it live, or they filmed it and aired it. But I think it was after someone won the title, and then he came back up and stuff, and I'm like, this is really cool. You know, it's like here I'm in the same suite as Piper. You know, it's like all the planets are aligning, and you know, and it was really cool. You know, so but yeah.
That's awesome story.
Talking to a younger self, like you mentioned earlier, if you had a chance to go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Don't stop smoking weed, man. No, it's been a dry existence ever since, man. It's been terrible, painful. No,
Oh man,
that's actually a good question. I don't want to say learn patience. Don't run into an argument or a fight with your guns blazing. You know, because you know, like I had mentioned my ex-wife. You know, and her and I get along really good. We have a daughter together, and she's from Germany. But I think in relationships, we're too quick to hurt the people we love the most verbally, you know. And I wasn't verbally abusive, but I didn't understand like some of the stuff she was saying. Like, for example, you know, she's from Germany and she'd miss her mom and she'd miss her dad, and you know, she'd miss her friends and stuff. And you know, and we were together when we didn't have any money, living in the trailer and all that stuff. And then, you know, we bought a house when I started working with WWE, and it was a nice bungalow, 1,600 square feet, nothing great, nothing fancy. And what I heard was, your good isn't good enough, you know? So I think, you know, learn communications a lot earlier in life, learn patience, and just really try to listen to what the other person is saying other than just hearing them, you know? So that's the best advice I can give to anybody, because, you know, we can't walk a mile in, you know, each other's shoes. You know, we can listen and try to figure out, you know, where, you know, how they're wearing their shoes and what they're going through, you know. And especially in life and a lot of the stuff that's going on, you know, we're quick to judge, we're quick to argue, we're quick to, you know, point out flaws or whatever, you know. But it's really, you got to listen to the other person, and you got to really don't hear what they're saying, listen to what they're saying. Right. And then you got to try to understand them, you know, because I like having conversations with people that are different, you know, or have different views, I should say, because I learn. Sometimes when you don't, you know, and it's easy, but both sides have to understand it's easy to, you know, and that's what we are as humans. We're quick to judge, you know, and a lot of times it's not, it's just easier to judge quickly opposed to just taking a step back and really approaching it in a calm manner, you know. And I tell people, you know, we're different, and that's a great thing, you know, because if we just agreed and followed, then life, and if everything was peachy, life would really suck, you know, because there's no obstacles, there's no challenge, you know. And that's the thing, you know, sometimes we don't have any challenges. Set challenges for ourselves, and that's how we become better. But the best thing to do is, I would say, just don't hear someone, listen to someone, you know. And that's the best thing. And I don't really get in depth with my ex-wife about conversations with that, because she's remarried to a great guy. He's a great stepdad to my daughter. They've got 2 kids together. His name's Olaf. If that's not a German name, I don't know what it is. Right? I'll tell you a quick story about Olaf, right? So the first time I meet him, right, this was years ago, and you know, he comes in and he shakes hands, and he's the business guy, right? You know how the firm handshake is a business, right? You know, but it was overly firm. I didn't know if it was the, hey, I'm the new sheriff in town or what, right? You know, and we were divorced for a couple of years, you know, and there was no, you know, once we, you know, she went back, it was one of those, it's not that she didn't like the US, she just missed her friends and family. And by listening, I would have told myself, I would have said, we could have sold the house, got a little place here and a little place there, and she could have went back and forth, you know. But, you know, me is like, oh, my good isn't good enough. How dare you? You know, that was my attitude. So it wasn't, you know, so that's what I was getting back. So anyway, so I have an open door. I can go and see my daughter and all that stuff. And so anyways, Olaf shakes my hand really stiff, right? So, you know, my mother-in-law, I'd stay at my mother-in-law and father-in-law's house. I'd call them the outlaws, because they're no longer in-laws, right? They're outlaws. So anyways, so I'd have my daughter over there, and it's cool because I'd go to the gym, and, you know, and they'd watch my daughter, and I'd spend a lot of time. So anyways, so Olaf comes over and gives me a stiff handshake and nice to meet you, this and that. So the whole time I'm thinking, how can I get back at this dude, right? You know? So anyway, so we're all making little chit chat, right? So I think they came over to drop my daughter off. And my ex-wife is a great mother. I mean, the best mom in the world. So anyways, they're bouncing, right? So as he goes to leave, he goes to shake my hand, because I can't do the, oh, stronger handshake than you. So I just looked at his hand. I didn't extend mine out. I pushed it down. I go, friends don't shake hands, friends hug. And I hugged him. He did not know what hit him. And my ex-wife starts laughing, and And then, because here you have a 300-pound, well, 290-pound man holding you. It didn't just become a hug. It became me embracing him and holding him, right? So I go to my ex-wife, I go, not only does he look good, he smells good too. So his world is all messed up. So here's the kicker, right? Because he's got a personality. After that, how could you not have a personality, right? When you're around me. So he realized the whole personality and all that, and so from that moment on, that's all we do. We hug when we say goodbye.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, because they have a house, not too far from her parents' house, and one time I dropped my daughter off, and this is about a couple years later, right? Maybe 3 years later. And I go, all right, see you later, Olaf. And I go to shake his hand, and he literally bats it down and gives me a hug. And I just start laughing. So, but no, as far as giving advice, and this is the advice I give to a lot of people. Just, don't take things, don't rush into arguments, and just, listen. Don't hear, listen. So,
man, I definitely applaud you, man, for all what you just said, man. That really hit home for me. I can just tell you, just as far as having conversations with people that you don't always necessarily agree with, and the differences. I love the answer. I really do, and I appreciate it.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you. I mean, you've told us a lot, but tell the people something that they don't know about Rhino. Something that we don't really know as a public. Something that you would want us to know.
Life can be hard at times, no matter who you are. Obviously in my life, I really haven't talked about this publicly, but I did go through a drinking problem. I don't see myself as an alcoholic. I don't know if I am or if I'm not. It was a situation in my life, and I just, like I said, I just gave up on it. I don't talk about. I talk about it individually to people. And one day, and I'm pretty religious. But one day, when I feel the moment to make it more public, I will, and I don't mind if people come up to me. Alcohol can be a very destroying thing. And it all depends on the person. And, there's times where, I just let it get a hold of me when I was going through a tough time. And if I didn't stop, obviously I'd be dead by now. But, it's one of those things where, like, if you tell yourself you can't have chocolate cake ever again, even if you don't want chocolate cake, you're going to want chocolate cake.
That's right. That's right.
Everybody was telling me, like, oh, you got to quit drinking. You can never drink again. And even if I didn't want to drink, it kind of want to make me drink. You know what I mean? It's like, and then I would think, well, if I give up drinking, I'm never going to be able to drink again. So you're adding a lot of pressure. So when I decided and I was serious about being done with it, I just told myself, I'll drink again, whether it's a beer, whether it's a mixed drink. But I kind of tricked myself. I have no desire to, but it's kind of like telling yourself you can't have ice cream or chocolate cake. You're going to want it even if you don't want it, So I have no ambitions to drink. It was the best thing I ever did. I became better, a better person all around, but anyways, yeah. So other than drinking like a demon for 3 years, I mean, so, but yeah, that other than that, and, I'm passionate about history. So there's two things, but
That's
a lot
awesome.
of people, yeah. So, but my thing is if anybody, you can do it, whatever it is in life, and never say, I'll never drink like that. Cause I said it before. Thank God I was never a big drinker before. I started drinking that, and never say, oh, I'll never do heroin, or I'll never, do this drug or that drug, because believe it or not, things like that can creep up on you. So always be aware of the raw power of addiction, because it can hit anybody. And if you are, there's always help out there. So, and don't give up on hope, you know. So
That's awesome.
That's great. That's great. Well, we always like to end our shows on. We have this game that we play. It's called One Word. We give
Okay.
you a phrase or a name or something, and you have to answer with only one word. All right. So, all right.
We're ending it like this on a good, happy note.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I can play this game good.
All right. Well, the first word, we're gonna make it pretty easy. It's one of the guys on Impact Wrestling, RVD.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Wrestling.
Awesome.
Shane McMahon.
Nice.
Vince McMahon.
Really quick, even though Kevin
Go ahead.
Kevin Nash hit it right on the head. He goes, he's the coolest rich person you'll ever meet. This was in Orlando. We're hanging out at the pool, and he, when he came back as the commissioner of SmackDown and stuff, he's just out hanging out by the pool, like one of the dudes, just like, hey guys, what's going on? It's like, hey Shane, how are you? Like, just chilling. Like, I don't know if his family was there or whatever. Yeah, he's really the coolest dude you could ever. Like, even Stephanie, they're very approachable. Triple H, really, really cool dude. Yeah, so
that's awesome. What about so Vince McMahon?
Awesome. He's a legend, man. I'll put legend. Yeah, he just turned 75.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's 75 and I'm 44, and I've never looked as good as him at his age, 75. I heard he's a bit of a prankster, though. My buddy Vic Joseph, he goes, like the meetings, if they got Pharrell, and this was before the whole COVID thing, but like if you go, hey, can I get some of that? He'll like squirt a bunch in your hand, and he'll just start laughing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Eric Bischoff.
Man, you guys are handcuffing me, man. One word. Come on, man. I'll tell you a quick story about Eric Bischoff. We were going over to Eric Bischoff, very smart. But here's Eric Bischoff. We were going over to, this was in 04, I think. We were going over to Hawaii doing a show, then over to Japan, right? They were combining, I think, SmackDown and Raw to do like a super tour. So when we landed in Hawaii, we were gonna just chill. We had a lot of time, but so they go, well, why don't you, like, Eric and Jericho spoke up and said, can you at least get us a hotel room? Because whenever we go overseas, the office would pick up a hotel room, right? And it would come off the gate. But anyways, they go, at least room us together, right? Yeah. So they rented a Delta plane, because a lot of times they would just do a charter back then. So they rented a Delta plane for a charter, and there was only so many first class seats. So that whole trip, they put myself next to Eric Bischoff, right? And we always got along, but I would joke with Eric Bischoff. I'm like, I'm your punishment, right? So they put us in the same room together, right? I got the room list in Hawaii, right? So I looked at, I told the guys that once we open the room, I'm going to run in and jump on a bed and say, mine. Like, but I'll tell you that when I roomed with Eric, you didn't get much sleep. It was just a, stretch out, shower if you wanted to, whatever. But I picked his brain about the whole NWO and just sat there and, we watched TV and stuff. And I mean, I learned so much just in such a small amount of time. And just, it was really cool. You hear him do interviews and his books and stuff like that, but just to hear it right out of his mouth, and just so much to learn, man. And I wasn't going to waste that opportunity. The flights over there, because they put us together, like they assigned people to the first class seats, and then the rest of the plane, I think it was better to sit in the back because you'd have rows to yourself, right? But anyways, yeah, they put him and I together the whole trip. Yeah. So I just picked his brain the whole route.
I don't blame you. I would have done the same thing.
Oh yeah.
All right. We have like 3 more. I have 3 more words. WrestleMania.
The grandest stage of all. I know that's more than one word. I'm really sucking at this game.
Jay?
All right. How about David Arquette, world champion?
Maybe now, but back then, I'll be honest with you. I'll just use early. David Arquette really, my hat goes off to him because 1, he looks great. 2, he's not doing it for money. He's doing it for love, and I know a couple people, I've never met him, but I know a couple people that do. And I follow some of his stuff, and he works hard, and you can't take that away from him. He works hard, he goes out there and he gives to the business. Back then, there was a lot of heat because it was a different situation, and it was just, it seemed like he was throwing into it. He's working his, butt off, and I see some of the bumps he takes, and it's kind of like, don't make us look bad, Dave.
Was there a lot of jealousy of people who give their whole life to this craft, and he comes in as an actor and wins a world championship?
I don't think jealousy. I think it was more of it wasn't the right direction. It's for sports and all that. And I understand why, I think now if they put the title on it, like kind of well deserved, because he is a wrestler now. Back then it seemed like it was just an actor, and even though they put the title on him the most creative way possible without trying to make wrestling look bad, which was understandable, but I think they were just shotgunning stuff too much, so. But like I said, now it's just like he's been putting in a lot of time over the last several years, and he does it for the love of it. I didn't know he loved wrestling as much as he does, so. But yeah, he's just really well deserving of any success he gets in wrestling.
Definitely. Michigan.
I would still rip him in half with a
Okay. Michigan.
That's if he don't beat me up first.
So back to the one word, Michigan. What does that mean? One word.
Say that again.
Michigan.
Love.
All right, my last one. The next big wrestling star.
That's a tough one. I think there's so many, man.
But from a global standpoint, the next superstar, like a John Cena, a Rock, a Stone Cold, somebody who you see could become a global icon.
Oh, Jesus. There's so many. How about I pick one from each, like eight?
Let's do it.
Go ahead.
Britt Baker, she's always impressive. Impact, the Moose is just so impressive. WWE, Adam Cole is very impressive. Tell you a quick story about Adam Cole. We were in Ring of Honor, and this was when WrestleMania was out there in New York. And this is probably about 4 or 5 years, about 5, 6 years ago, maybe. And Matt Hardy and myself were teaming up against, we were at the Hammerstein Ballroom where they started Raw, up above the Hammerstein Ballroom. And anyways, you know what building I'm talking about, right? Where Raw first started? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So anyways, I never, because ECW would run the ballroom, which was street level. And then above that is where and I never knew that, right? And I'm looking around when I first went in there, and I'm like, this doesn't look like the place WWE Raw. No, it's above that. I'm like, above that? There's actually like room above. You mean the attic? You know? So then we ran that a few times with the Impact and Ring of Honor and stuff. So we were in there, and for some reason they were too close to like Matt or something, and I tried to draw him away, and he was going to arm drag me. So he thought the arm drag was coming, you know, or he thought I was coming in for the arm drag, and I kind of like half went, and then I'm like, oh, and then like so I went, and then it looked like hell. So I rolled out, and then I let the fans just jaw it up, and it was being taped. So I go right back around, and I told the ref, I go, tell him when I get in the ring and you see me running at him, just tell him to arm drag me and just, you know, go through whatever moves, right? So anyways, so I get in the ring and I count down like 3, you know, and I'm jawing at the crowd. So the crowd really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm jawing at the crowd, and I get in the ring, and then I look at him and I run at him, and then he arm drags me, all that stuff. I get back, and Hunter, delirious, he goes, oh, that was great. So what I did was I give him an edit point. So, and then in Impact Wrestling one time, years before, I was cutting a promo on AJ, and I'm looking at the camera and I'm walking, and I start stumbling on my words, and there's no saving the promo. So I'm like, crap. I stopped. I looked at the people. I go, take 2, and they popped, right? And they started chanting my name. So as they're doing that, I'm literally walking backwards, thinking of the break in the sentence. I'm kind of playing to the crowd, you know, and then because it was taped, I stop, and then I start, I give it a pause, right? You know, an edit point. And then I look at them and I go, as I was saying, so they pop more, right? And then, and then I quiet down and I count, and then so they're reacting. So then I start the promo, and then, you know, and then it worked out smooth, right? So I didn't start from the beginning of the promo, just a break, and, you know, and when I started a new sentence. So I get back, and Road Dogg and Jarrett, they're like, oh, that was great, this and that. And I thought to myself, I get more, I'm praised more when I screw up and give them an edit point than when I go out there and have a, you know, a 3-4 star match, right? So, but anyways, yeah. So, I think in WWE, yeah. So Adam Cole. So
definitely, yeah. Last one for me, family.
Family, important.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, that's it for that game.
I thought you were going to say my name. I was going to say. Because hey, when you think of Rhino, you just think of sex appeal, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, currently in Impact Wrestling, you have an angle or a feud with Rhino Scum. I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything, but would you mind, in your best Rhino voice, do you have any kind of message for Rhino Scum?
Yeah, lighten up. It's a work. I feel like I'm in the MMA, or, you know, I feel like I went 10 rounds of Shamrock. I'm not getting soft in my age. I'm just, you know, come on, work with me a little bit, you know. After getting beat up all these years, I want to kind of coast through, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Heath Slater's got my back. If he ever gets in the building, you guys are doomed. So.
Awesome. What do you have? You have any shout outs or anything you'd like to promote yourself on the show?
No, I got to get on social media a little bit more, but yeah, I have an Instagram page. I don't really know what it is. I got a Facebook page, but that's packed up. I need to create a fan thing. So, but I do have a Terry and Gary's Low Expectation podcast that I do on Zoom with my buddy Gary. He lives here in Monroe, and he's really, you know, good with community. He does the Monroe Pop Fest, which is like the Comic-Con. So, yeah, this year was canceled, but He's built it up every year, and he brings in a lot of talented people. So for signings and a lot of cool things. So Comic-Cons are really cool. So
awesome. Where can you find the podcast? Is it on Facebook, or you say it's on Zoom? But what platform?
Facebook, yeah, Facebook and a lot of other avenues. He's better at that. I have a little marina in Monroe, Michigan. It's called Big Daddy's Boatyard, and they're putting in the keypad, for the gates and stuff. And I'm gonna have a tough time remembering those numbers. So you guys are asking me a lot of things to remember. It's a 4-digit number. I like messing with some of the people that keep their boats here. Like I text them like, hey, we got a keypad, to get in and all that stuff. And here's the code. And, one morning I'm going to wake up and just give them like a 10-digit code saying we had to switch it to 10 digits. They'll look at it going like, I'm supposed to remember this? So, but yeah, it's funny because I'll have, yesterday I was out there working all day on putting in some new dock posts. I had a guy, he took out a dock post, which is always fun, and then my buddy, he was helping me drop the sledgehammer in the water. So we had to go diving for that.
Wow.
People always wonder, they're like, aren't you worried about the coronavirus? I go, I swam in Lake Erie. I'm immune to 90% of stuff up there. Back when I was a kid in the 80s, we could walk to Canada. That's how polluted Lake Erie was.
Wow.
Here's a funny story, right? So I was reading in the paper, this was like in 1969, a river in Cleveland, the Lake Erie feeds it right there, and it was Lake Erie and the mouth of this river caught on fire, literally water caught on fire. And that's when they decided, hey, maybe we should stop polluting. That's a good reason to stop, when water catches on fire. But here's the kicker. That was the 3rd time it caught fire. Yeah. So, hey, right through and you're out, So I remember when we were kids, once you get out into the lake a little bit, but until you got out in the lake, the wake of the boat, it would have a reddish tint. And but the Clean Water Act, I think in 75 or 74, maybe 72, it started the ball rolling. Because back then, a lot of people for decades, they just thought, we'll just throw it in the water, it goes someplace. And then, and unfortunately, that was the mentality back then. But yeah, the lake is a lot cleaner now, and it's, so it's good to go.
Well, that's definitely good to hear.
Yeah.
That's definitely good.
My buddy goes, you want me to dive in there and get that? I go, yeah. I'm not jumping in there.
Well, man, I want you to know I learned a lot about you today. I truly appreciate you coming on. I really think you should write a book. I really do. You have a lot of knowledge, a lot of things that you've been through. And I know you're still living, so I think you should write a book, man. But I do appreciate you coming on.
I would write a book if I think I can help people. I think, just my experiences, what not to do and maybe what to do,
That's right.
Other than that, I don't, so, but anyways, yeah.
Awesome. We appreciate you coming on. And that concludes our big interview with you, man. We appreciate you, and hopefully we can keep in touch. And
don't be a stranger.
Now I'm going to try to learn that code so I can get in and out of my place.
Definitely. We're going to have to go to Michigan and hang out over there.
Right. Hey, I'll tell you a quick story, right? You guys are like, man, we got to go. So the first year I had this marina, we had to pull out like 500 dock posts. And this kid, his name's Nate Bach, he came up from California to train at Scott Demore's school here in Windsor, right? So he's over because he didn't have any friends, right? So he'd come over here and help me around the marina, right? And he's like, yeah, I was a big fan of yours in 2003, and he's a young guy, right? So we're talking about wrestling and, and him helping me out, I'd pass on knowledge, how to, wrestling moves, all that stuff, and how to act and, all that stuff. And and I'm down. And it was so funny because he's telling me about matches I had and stuff like that. And so I'm down on my hands and knees, and I'm just wrenching, you know, trying to unbolt these poles, right? Because you have to bury them in the muck and pull them out and stuff. And I look back and I go, hey, that 8-year-old kid that was a big fan of Rhino, did you ever think you'd be helping him at his marina on his hands and knees with my ass in the air? And I'm looking back, I go, that's a sight. This is a sight you'll never get out of your head. I go, I probably ruined every childhood, you know, hope you had, you know, being a wrestler. And he just starts laughing. I go, well, soak it in, kid, because this is a real life.
Great story. Great story.
But anyway, so all right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for having me.
All right, man. We're gonna don't be a stranger, man. Definitely come back and talk with us.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
All right, man. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too.